Well, after another NCAA regional appearance, it's always great to catch up with Coach Feccio after a fantastic year for Saluki men's golf. Coach, we appreciate it. I know we have a conversation with you as well as two of your players coming on here, Carson and Frank, in a matter of moments. But just after a year you have, with the success that you have, no question it builds a target, all those type of things now moving forward. But you've been used to sustaining success here. What's been the key to it? What's been the biggest key of them all to be able to sustain the success that you've had?
I mean, I think it's easy to just look at it and say your teams get better and your teams are in a spot to win championships because your players get better, right? So I think we put a strong emphasis on player development, we make sure we leave no stone unturned from the time that you arrive in August to the time that you leave, that you're going to find a way that your golf game has gotten better, and hopefully multiple ways, right? And so I think for us, if we look at, we had from last year to this year, we had 5 returners: Carson, Justin, Peyton, drawing a blank now, Hugo, Andrew Thornton. If you take those 5 guys from last year to this year, every single guy improved their scoring average. And if you add all 5 of them up, it was like over 10 shots between the 5 of them that they got better from last year to this year. And so I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at what level. It doesn't matter if you're the number 1 guy, the number 8 guy, the number 5 guy. We're going to find ways to improve your game and to make you better. And by doing that, ultimately, we hope that our team just continues to get better every year because we're showing that improvement and that growth.
You mentioned the improvement, but it comes in terms of development as well within your program. And you know you're going out, you're getting really talented players to come and be a part of your program, but it's not just you get the talent to come here and the talent stays the same. There's stuff that you work on day to day. There's a lot of stuff that maybe fans don't always see, that supporters don't always see when they just come to your golf outings in the fall and they meet your team. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into this, Coach Feccio. It's more than just yourself too. What does it take day to day of what you feel like is important that you try to hit with your guys to get to that development factor?
You know, we're a program that really, no excuses, right? So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the conditions are like, what the weather's like, what who who it is that we're playing. We are just going out there every day with the mentality of we're going to get better. And if that's 1% better, if that's 2% better, whatever it is, we're going to get better in terms of just straight competition. So I would say every one of our practices, every one of our qualifiers, all of our meetings, it's just about competition. It's just about how can you rise to the level of, how do you continue to elevate your game? Because I think we're not a program where we get 10 talented players in here and we just say, okay, guys, just go out, hit some balls, do your thing. We might play a qualifier here or there, but then we'll just get ourselves ready to go. It's just every day we're trying to focus on different aspects of our game, but we're also trying to do it in a competitive manner so that, I think if anybody's in a relaxed environment, probably at this level, we could take them out to the range and they could hit 7-irons, and they're going to hit it pretty much at their target all day long, right? They're going to be able to hit a full 7-iron right there at this level. And I think for us, it's being able to take it and say, okay, how do we make that competitive? How do we get out on the course and make that 7-iron mean something more to you than just hitting a ball in the range? How does this up and down mean that much more to you? And so I think it's just a combination of a lot of things, but I think it's having your expectations at a certain level to where the guys on the team know what that level is, and we have to be able to get there every day to be able to do that.
I truly believe that when it comes to the scheduling aspect, and you can preach that every day, Coach Feccio, of, hey, this is our standard, like this is where we want you to be. But then if every week maybe you aren't testing yourselves a ton when it comes from a competition side, it almost feels like those words get lost. But when you preach it day to day of where you want the expectation bar to be with your players, and then you see names like Mississippi State, Florida State, big name schools that are, of course, competing for national championships on your schedule, that shows that to your guys, it's not just talk. This is the expectation, and now we got to go out and reach it. How big of a part of that is why it's important, the way you schedule? It's not just, oh, we like to go to the Bahamas, Hawaii. It's the competition side that you're really going in all of these tournaments, and the respect factor that your program has to get into these tournaments.
Right. Yeah. We say that we have these tournaments on our schedule, but we're going there to compete. They're not just on there as like a joyride, right? Like, oh, we're playing in this tournament. We're going there to compete. And I think each year it's starting to get more and more, like in terms of the events that we're going to. So like if you just look at next year, like we're going to events that are hosted by Purdue, Wisconsin. We're going out to Hawaii again. We're going to an event hosted by Michigan. We're going to, Oregon. We're going to Indiana, to Iowa. So, I mean, it's like we're going to a lot of these events that, quote unquote, Power Fives or the bigger conferences are hosting, and we're going to see some quality competition. But we're not just putting them on our schedule to say that we have them on our schedule. Right? We're going to test ourselves and be able to show that we can compete at that level. And I think that kind of backs up what we have to do every day for our practice. Like, we have to be prepared for those moments. We don't just want to go through our practices, do our stuff, and then go to the event, and then all of a sudden just be like, okay, now it's time to turn on. Now it's time to do this. Now we got to focus on this. It's like those are the things that we try to do every day. So then when we get to those events, it's like, this is what we've been doing. This is what we're focusing on. We're just going to go play golf now.
There are so many things to point to of what your group was able to accomplish as group. Of course, some great individual accomplishments with Eddie, of course, leading the way, and Dane having an outstanding spring as well for you, an outstanding year. But what really stood out to me, which we're recording you after we talk to both of your players, and we'll have your players coming up here for those interviews, but what was great to hear from them about some of their favorite moments, Frank specifically talking about the moment on the 18th hole and being able to watch Eddie come up and to have that moment. One, to be in the moment where you kind of have the championship somewhat in the bag, where those putts maybe aren't as necessarily high stress, but to have virtually your whole team there. And I think even guys who weren't necessarily playing, they were just there to support one another, to be there. Is that a moment for you that, I know in the moment you're probably focusing, trying to help Eddie get that moment closed, but like to see your team genuinely happy for one another? I mean, that to me has to be the ultimate sign of, yeah, you want to see your name pop up on a selection show, you want to compete for championships, get it. Winning, competing, that's what it's about. But also that moment is
right.
What it's about too, because there's a lot of teams that see their name come up and win championships that don't have that moment.
Right. I think that's, like you said, as a coach, I mean, that's a testament to what we're talking about in terms of just culture and environment and just team chemistry. And by no credit, or by no way am I saying that I'm trying to take credit for our team, because you have, like, the players have to embrace that, right? Like, we promote it, but they have to embrace that. And of all of the conference championships or just all of the other big moments of just being around, that one's is so special because you're not thinking about it at the time, but then, like, when you're looking back and you're seeing it and you see Eddie make the putt to win, right? Like, you already know that you're winning, but then for him to be able to do that, and then to just look over and see a group just know that that is what that's what we had been working toward and being able to do. But then to add the level of, it's not like we were playing this conference championship 30 minutes from campus. We had the rest of our team, other supporters, trainer, drive over 4.5 hours that morning to cheer on that team because they were invested into everything they were doing, because everybody played a part into that championship, whether you hit the cheese shot, made the putt, everybody played a role on that team to push somebody to be better. And to be able to see everybody be able to embrace that, and then to have everybody be able to ride home in the van afterwards, it's like, I mean, there's just some moments that you can't, that you just don't envision. That was one that I never envisioned happening, but I'll never forget that moment of having the entire group there together to take pictures, to hold the trophy, to feel it. That's just such an incredible moment.
And then to go to the regional and perform well. That's
Right.
always the expectation is, and I don't want to paint other programs in this way, but there are sometimes a feeling of when you make the postseason of it's just great to be here. But your team was very direct, even on the selection show afterwards, of we want to go here to show everybody that we're going to outperform our seeding. And you did that. I believe best performance ever in a regional for a Saluki program. What was it about the regional that you liked? And then also, what can it show guys who are coming back that can really utilize that experience of this is what it's like, this is how hard it took to get there. Now you can use this to help you however it takes you.
Right. So I think when we got the draw of going to Purdue, that was obviously huge because not only was it the closest one, but just the knowledge of the course and knowing that it was going to play pretty difficult was more or less up our alley. I mean, that was kind of the nature and the chemistry of our team. I don't know, I don't know that we were necessarily the team that you would look at and say, okay, our strength is to go shoot 45 under and we can just free will it and go at every flag and try to make as many birdies as we can. We were kind of more of a disciplined, tough team. We want to have to drive it in the fairway, and if not, it's penal. We want to have to be able to hit on the green and have good speed because those were the things we did. So I think being able to have that good draw was important. And then I think to have the couple of weeks leading up to, we had went to a couple Big Ten tournaments and played pretty well, and then we were going to another Big Ten site. And so I think just kind of building that helped us kind of get to a point to where we felt really good about being there. And then, I mean, ultimately, yes, we finished 9th. And it's our best finish in school history. But that was such a tight leaderboard that we were actually 13 shots away from advancing to the national championship. And if you break it down, you count 4 scores across 3 days. I mean, you're basically 1 stroke per guy per day. And we're that close to playing in that national championship. And so I think as you look at it, it's like nobody would have said Southern Illinois is that close to being able to play in a national championship, right? Like nobody on the outside was thinking that. But these guys, that was nothing. I mean, that was like finishing 9th wasn't a celebration for us. It was a disappointment because we wanted to be there. And, like you said, to your point, there might be some teams that they were just happy, oh, man, we're at regionals. Let's just see what happens and have fun. And I think our group, we were a little bit different. And so I think being able to take that experience, roll it over into next year from all the people that were a part of, whether you played in that regional, like I said, it was just everybody played the role. So the people that are coming back, like they're going to be able to use that experience and say, these are the things that we have to be able to do if we want to be able to get there, right? And so I think some good things for us, and kind of going back to the scheduling a little bit, was we were able to play courses like a Florida State earlier that spring. They host a regional once every 4 years, so we got a chance to see how are we performing on a regional style course, right? Indiana, where we went to, they're going to host a regional at some point. That course is difficult. We got to see how we responded on a course like that and what it takes to be successful. And then when you start to build and you start to put the knowledge in, these are the things I have to do, then all of a sudden it's ready to be able to take off.
One of the areas, Coach Fetcher, that really stood out to me was within my first week here was your golf outing in the fall. And to see the level of support that your golf program has here was just astounding to see so many people come out and show their love and support for not just yourself, but for your players, for the program, to help you guys be able to go on these trips and to be able to go and be able to test yourselves. As you sit right now as the leader of the program, what are ways that still Salukis, regardless of where they're located, can really help your program? What are the biggest ways that you're really trying to push of these are the avenues where we're no question in a great spot and we like where we're at, but here are ways where you can continue to help and grow our program?
Right, that's a very great question, and I think we have been so fortunate and blessed with so many people that want to help our program, like being in that fundraiser. So 37 teams, 6-person teams, that's what we had last year, on top of over 100 whole sponsors, plus sponsors, just other various sponsors. So the amount of people that support our programs, just, it's phenomenal. Like, I could not be, it could not touch me anymore to have the people that support our program. Now, if we look ahead, just with the NCAA, just the changing of the landscape, just everything that's going on, you got the transfer portal, you've got NIL, like, we can't stand pat, right? Like, if we want to take our name up a notch, to be that team that's competing to go to nationals, like, to have that opportunity, right? The teams that made it out of a regional, they're all in the top 25. I mean, they're really, really good programs, okay? Now, I'm not naive enough to think we're going to have everything that everybody has, but I will tell you, some of the key things that we need just for us would be, an opportunity to kind of dip into that NIL. And I know the university's making a big push through that, right? We have the collective in doing that. I mean, that's obviously one way that we can benefit and help our student athletes more in areas that probably other programs are doing too. I would say probably some other big needs for us are, at a much bigger project and a much bigger scale, is we've got to upgrade our facilities. We've got some very nice golf courses in our area, but I think from a practice standpoint on a daily basis, we have got to find ways to be able to upgrade our facilities for development, to continue the development, but also for recruiting, right? I mean, that's kind of the era that we're in. I mean, everybody kind of likes the shiny things, the bells and whistles. I think we do all the hard work, but it's just being able to have that. And then I think just, again, from a student athlete standpoint, we talked about this with one of our players earlier, but like, we travel so much, we're on the road so much, and so I think one of the things that we're starting to see that we might be lacking in a little bit is every one of these teams, they're traveling in these really nice, what you'd call sprinter vans. So it's, a big van where they've got a lot of room. They can do their homework. It's Wi-Fi connected. I mean, they can, you travel in a little bit more comfort being able to get to these spots. And I think for us to be able to take care of our student athletes so that, they don't have a back issue, or they can do their homework without having to find a hot spot or whatever, like, being able to do that, those are the things that we're trying to take our game up another notch to be able to do. And obviously the university is great with their own support of all the programs, but with us too. But to be able to kind of go above and beyond like everybody else, we have to be able to find those resources through our supporters, through alumni, through just donor potential of what you're doing. You're not just helping a golf program. You're not just helping 10 people. I can promise you, you're helping, you're helping both men's and women's golf when you're able to do something like this, right? But you're not just helping that current year's team. You're helping so many people down the line of what this is, to be able to enhance all of our student athlete experience here. So, if one of those things touches somebody's heart, right?
Yeah.
Please feel free to reach out, because those are active. We are actively trying to, really make sure that we can try to find ways for our facilities and try to find ways for the van. I mean, those are two things that are kind of at the top of our wish list right now of what it is that we're trying to do. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're trying to go, to be able to put ourselves up there so that we're at kind of this national brand level, as opposed to regional style level, and I think that we're going to be able to do that just through the support that we've already received. Like you said, we've been able to kind of branch ourselves out, go to Hawaii, go to the Bahamas, travel and play these events. Without that support, we may not even be sitting here talking about winning 4 championships, going to the NCAA postseason, because those things have directly impacted our program so far, to be able to get to the point we're at. And now it's just trying to get to another level.
I was going to say, it's not just your great mind. It's just you just show up and everything happens, right? I mean, it's there, but I say that jokingly, but that is why. I mean, you mentioned those things, or the importance of the facility enhancements, obviously NIL, that's the landscape that we're in, but it is the landscape that you're in, and you either adjust to it, you adapt to it, and you find ways to continue to improve and be on the cutting edge, or you get left behind. And I'm sure that's just probably the biggest thing right now where you're sitting at is finding ways where you can direct that program even more.
Right. Yeah. That's what I mean. I think you never want to stay stagnant, right? I mean, you never, it's just like we talk about with our own goals of our program. Like we don't want to be like, yeah, okay, so yeah, we've won a few conferences, we're happy. Let's just kind of let's not rock the boat. Let's keep status quo. Hopefully, we'll win another one a couple of years from now or down the. It's like you're always trying to look to be able to say, how can we improve? How can we get better? And I think if you look at that, it's just like, how do we get to a point to where we can continue to upgrade and enhance for our student athletes, both current and future, right? I mean, there's a big impact there that can be played, and so I think you're always trying to find ways to get ahead because somebody else is trying to do it if you're not. I mean, somebody's always trying to figure out those things, and we just want to be able to try to be in a spot where we can do those things as well.
Coach, it's always great to catch up with you, but now I think all of our fans and supporters are really going to like the next couple of interviews that we have with Carson and Frank. I know you're going to stick around for them, but from my perspective, it was a great year. Really appreciate all the access that you were able to give to us and the interviews, and definitely look forward to what's to come here next year.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
All right, Coach Fetcho, talking to you has been entertaining, but now let's bring on some of your team. And we start with Carson, who had an outstanding year for you. Carson joins us here. Carson, appreciate the time. Number one, man, what a year for you guys and this team and the excitement level to be able to get back to a regional. I remember talking to you guys a little bit in the fall when we were going through your photo shoots, and there seemed to be a buzz and optimism about what you all could accomplish this year. For you guys, what did it feel like to accomplish a lot of those major goals?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I'd say starting off, we started slow to the year, but that kind of changed. There was like a flip of the switch almost to where we were able to get something going, like a little bit of momentum. And that happened whenever Edouard won the event in Indiana, I'd say. We had a decent finish there. And then from there, it was just able to build from that. And it was really nice to see because we worked so hard at like what we've been doing. And then just like for the guys that were there, it was really great to see like all of it kind of work out the way we thought. We had the intention of going into the season like we can win this conference championship and see however far we go. And for us to end up achieving it, it was really nice to see that.
Yeah, no, I think those are things that we try to talk about in our program, right? You got to have some ups and downs, and I think to Carson's point there, we started a little bit slower, especially kicking off the spring, but I think through those things you learn, you grow. I mean, if everything is going great, and then all of a sudden you hit adversity, you may not know how to respond to that. So I think that slow start and then being able to ultimately use those things because, again, as Carson mentioned there at the end, I mean, a lot of those golf courses we played at the end were very difficult golf courses. I mean, it wasn't like we were at places where, 30 under was winning. Indiana's tough. Our conference championship place was tough. Purdue's tough. So I think those kind of courses set our style up to play the way that we did. And I think it was through those times at the beginning of the season that we learned and grew together.
Carson, kind of building off of what Coach Fetcho was just talking about, is one of the areas that we hinted at in our conversations. One of the things I talk about with Coach Fetcho a lot throughout the year of, look, you look at your guys' schedule and you can tell that you're tested. And it's not just tested, one weekend in the fall and then we'll see what you do in the spring. You're tested every weekend. As a competitor, what does it mean to you to know that each and every week you guys are going up against some of the biggest schools in the country and truly seeing where your talent level stacks up? And that's why when you get to a regional, none of you guys are scared about what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, but it doesn't start like on the road either. Like we have competitive qualifying series, competitive practice, like it's constant. So we're ready for the moments as well in that. But yeah, the competition part to where we're playing top 25 teams in the country. I mean, we played Florida State and Florida. Florida State was in the national championship final this year. Florida won the national championship last year in regionals. Just like as a mid-major, it might be hard to get into those events, but Coach does a great job at getting us in, and we try to show what we can do for that. And hopefully they reward us by improving our ranking a little bit with some higher strength of schedule. But it's as good of a competition as you'd want
Coach,
for major level for sure.
to kind of build off of what Carson was talking about in terms of just that confidence and belief. It doesn't just happen when you get on the road. It's what you guys do in the fall. It's the competitive practices. You mentioned heading into the year where this roster was your biggest roster that you had, and the joy that you knew that that's going to create a lot of competition. But you also got to have the right personalities as well. Where does Carson and really that roster you felt were able to strike that balance of having really good competitive practices? Because you know there was going to have to be some weekends if you're going to tell some guys that were right there on the cutting edge that they weren't going to be able to play.
Right. Those are obviously difficult conversations to have, right? Whenever you've got a bunch of guys that are playing well and competing, and only 5 people get to travel to an event, and as Carson said, I mean, just the competitiveness of just daily practices, qualifiers, and I think it was good for us because we had a good mix of people that were returning that kind of understood what our program was about, what we were going to do every day, and then we blended them with a bunch of new people that kind of came from all over, some junior college transfers, incoming freshmen, and so I think everybody kind of has that same thing when they get in our program. It's like, wow, like this, like we're going at it pretty hard. We're going at it like this is a lot, and so I think being able to have returners like Carson that are able to tell these guys, look, man, this is just what we do. This is who we are. Like you will, if there's tough times, you will get through it. If you feel like you're working hard, you will get through it. These are that you kind of lean on your returners and Carson for those guys to be those people that are kind of gelling the team together. Because again, when you're working so hard, and to his point, like when you're competing against each other, like, I mean, our guys, we work out together. A lot of them have classes together. I mean, they're in the College of Business. We go to practice together. They go eat together. They live together. That's hard when you can only travel 5 and either your name is called and you have to leave your friends behind and go do it, or your name's not called and you watch somebody else go off. So I think being able to kind of have that dynamic of a team where you've got that leadership from returning players to be able to kind of jump in there and keep the team's vision going into the right direction.
You mentioned Carson for yourself when Eddie was able to win that tournament and really compete, that was a sign for all of you guys that, look, we really have the skill set to get to where we want to accomplish. Maybe for you, maybe it was a point during the Valley Championship run when you guys were able to win the tournament. Like, is there a moment in those tournaments where you feel like for yourself, Carson, like we're where we want to be? Like, I really like where everybody's mindset is that. Is that during the course of the tournament, or is that even way before you even get to the tournament that you guys have that confidence level?
I'd say that probably after the Myrtle Beach tournament, we didn't have the tournament that we were looking for, and we rolled straight into Indiana. And I think that once we saw that Eddie could compete almost throughout the first I think he was tied first or in first after the first 2 rounds. He was able to hold on to that, and seeing him hold on to that was a good start for that. And then just whenever you get a little bit of momentum, seeing who you beat in 1 round, seeing who you beat in 2 rounds, 3 rounds. We played in Illinois State in Iowa, and we had a bad first round, still came back to beat them by 1 in the tournament. And they're the number 1 competition we were going to face in the conference tournament. Just knowing that you've already beat them and you can beat them again, it's just adding on to the confidence that you can have already. So
you guys spend so much time on the road with each other. There's a lot of travel involved, Coach Fecchio. So is there a favorite travel story that you have with Carson?
That's what I was actually going to ask Carson was what was your favorite tournament? What was your favorite tournament we played? I mean, I'm 99.9% sure I know exactly what he's going to say, but I just want to hear it. I just want to hear what he has to say and why he enjoyed it so much. But yeah, share with us what, as a player, what was your favorite tournament you took, this year?
I mean, it's got to be the Bahamas.
I knew that was coming.
Shocker.
That's the obvious answer. We stayed at Atlantis, the great resort there. I mean, got the water park right behind the hotel and everything. The service that they had at the tournament, and it was just top notch. It was the best tournament I've played in probably. So I mean, I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah,
Um,
Bahamas is not too bad there, Carson. That's a
yeah,
good trip to have up
yeah,
there on
I
that list.
wouldn't mind going back there, but they got the 4 year rule.
Right, right, yeah. So we can't leave the country again for 4 years. So yeah, we won't be able to do that. But I think another point that, quite honestly, I didn't even think about, and Carson brought up when you talk about tournament schedules is, look at Southern Illinois, look at mid majors, look at whoever that is, and whatever sport. And in men's golf, Florida State was playing for the national championship this year. We played those guys
Yeah.
in their tournament at their place, right? And so you think mid-major, so that's what I'm thinking is just like put yourself like that's what we were trying to build for, was being able to play competition like that throughout the course of the year. So again, it is fun to go to the tournaments like the Bahamas, which we do see good teams there too, right? But it's also like, I think, and Carson can jump in here and share as well, but like for us and our players, like that's what excites us, is not even necessarily saying, hey, we're going to go play this really amazing golf course in this really beautiful area. It's like we're going to get to go play against Florida, a national runner-up. We're going to go get to play against a top 5 team in the country, a top 10 team in the country, and you start circling those on your calendar, and before you know it, after it's like, man, we're going to get to play a lot of this strong competition. And I think for us, and again, that's for me as a coach, that's why I do what I do, right? To be able to try to get stuff like that. But it's more so for the players, because I feel like that's what gets them engaged into having those competitive practices and qualifiers, because those are the ones where you're like, this is why I came here. I want to play this event. I want to do this, right? So, so Carson, I mean, what is it like for you as a player? Like when and again, I know we're taking the end of the year in Florida State finishing in the as a runner-up on in this particular scenario, but like when we're going and we're playing competition and we know like it's not like Florida State came out of nowhere. They were like a top 5 team all year long. But for you as a player, like are there certain ones where you're like, man, this is one I don't want to miss. Like I'm working toward this. Like I want to see these teams this week.
I mean, I want to be in all of them, but like I'd say just like knowing like events like Florida State, obviously they had Ole Miss there, who was a number 2 seed at regionals. Like teams like you're gonna see in the postseason for sure that are gonna be auto bids, but also individuals like Wisconsin had Cameron Huss, who ended up winning or getting like second or third in our regional to qualify as an individual to the national championship and California. So I mean, just seeing like players like that, you can learn a lot from them, and I think that's good, just in a way that you can build or learn from them and build around their game what you could understand for yours, basically. So I mean, Florida State's obviously a great one to go to. Iowa, they had some good teams in there that were Power 5 teams that we were able to beat. And that just shows that you can beat anyone because they're playing in their Big 12 championships the next week, and you can see who they beat too, and their auto bids into regionals. So it just gives you some confidence for that.
And I think to Luke's point, right? It's like when you get to regionals, there's not any teams there that we haven't seen, right? So you're like, okay, this is, we try to make it another week. It's probably one of the most stressful weeks that you can have, right? Because that's you either win or you go home. Like we don't really have another tournament on our schedule. I mean, I guess conference championship week, if you're not in that spot, there's a chance for that too. But when you get there, you kind of want it to just be any other week. And when you build a tournament schedule like we've been able to do, that's what we want regionals to feel like.
Carson, kind of for fans who maybe haven't had the opportunity to go and watch a regional round from a golf perspective, I know obviously Coach Fetcho's had a lot of experience coaching in it, you now being able to play in it, just the differences of what it's like maybe through a non-conference tournament, even compare it to a Valley Tour. I know the stress is high in those tournaments, just the different level of just how a tournament feels from the time you get there throughout. And I think everybody knows how tough of a mental game golf is, but really how much of a mental stressor that you have to make sure you are so mentally tough and ready for that regional.
Yeah, I'd say that just the environment around it is so serious that where you walk in and you're instantly elevated to like a different level of like competition almost, that you either rise to the occasion or you don't. And I'd say that just the vibe there is a lot different than maybe say like the first tournament of the year to where everybody's still kind of getting used to things. Like everybody knows this is their last event if they don't play well. And if they play good, they are heading to the national championship with a chance to win and make it to match play and do all the things that they envision their team doing for the year. So I'd say just closing down the year, it just builds off of the previous start to the year and it just gets more serious and more serious until you're running out of events basically until your last one. So yeah.
Before we let you go, Carson, again, we really appreciate the time for you recapping the year with us. One of the areas that you know is when you come here is what Coach Fetcho mentioned and what you mentioned is, of course, the strong competition, being able to win a Valley Championship to get into an NCAA regional. But there's so much more to that in terms of you guys, the development of players. I know Coach Fetcho is here, but what have you really enjoyed about the program in terms of the development day to day and what you learn from a guy like Coach Fetcho within this program?
Coach has been around a lot of good teams before SIU and came to SIU. Ended up leaving for a year, going to Florida State, which obviously was in the national championship final this year. So he knows what great programs do, and he tries to build off of that into our program. And while they may have more facilities and stuff like that, it's what you make of the facilities too. And we try to optimize that to where we get the most out of our games in that aspect. And just coming into the program my freshman year, I'd say we had worse facilities and like worse situation, and we were still able to win conference. And then the next year we had an off year. We didn't play very well, but this year we came back, struggled again, and then there was just a switch. And I think Coach helped us get back to our desired spot of winning a conference championship and competing in a regional. So just the experience that he provides and the competition that he brings on a daily basis, it's hard to beat from any other perspective. So,
and Coach Fetcho, for Carson on his way out, we all know when you go through whatever's close personally to you, you know how those around you, how important they are to your success. It may look like your success or team success, but you know it doesn't happen without some key people to hold it all together. How important has Carson been, and how important will Carson will be for the success of your program moving forward?
Yeah, so I think if Carson can, I would like for him to just share maybe just for him personally. But the thing that I think our program has kind of built itself on, and you alluded to it, was player development, was players getting better and improving. And obviously I have a lot of these conversations in my office with the players one-on-one. So I think it would be good for Carson to maybe just be able to share that with some of the listeners. But for a background, like Carson came in his freshman year, I think he played 2 tournaments, had an average that I'm sure that he wasn't proud of, right? Then last year played more tournaments, scoring average got better. This year played tournaments, scoring average got better, right? Now we head into his senior year. And we've already talked kind of about just being able to have the leadership of somebody. And Carson will have been in our program for 3 full years going into his senior year. He's going to bring a lot of leadership, qualities, characteristics, and just knowledge that we're going to need to be successful. But I think outside of all those intangibles, Carson's going to continue to get better. He's proved it for the first 3 years of his career. And so I think, Carson, would there be a way that you could just share, and it doesn't have to be super in-depth or whatever, but, like what have been the things that you have worked on or emphasized or, put a lot of work in to see your scoring average and your level of play of being able to qualify for more events as we've went on, like to be able to get to the point to where, you're going to be rolling in here your last year as one of those guys that we're looking at to be able to make a strong impact on our team.
Yeah, so I mean, my freshman year, I couldn't really chip the ball at all. I had some struggles going on with that, and then I just didn't hit it very good. Like I was just not very good at golf at that point, and it really motivated me because I hated being like a guy who felt like they weren't letting the team down, but weren't adding any golfing value because I felt like I added a lot of like just like a teammate and like a friend as of the team, but I really wanted to be a part of it. And going into sophomore year, um, I qualified for like 9 out of the 12 events, and then it was good to start. And then near the end, I just lost confidence in what I was doing basically, and um, that really stung. And I didn't end up starting at conference, which really was like a sad end to my season. And it just like those bad endings motivate me a lot to where I can try to have the best summer that I can to be ready for the next year, basically. And this year coming into my last year, I want to be a part of the team in a big way. And I'm the only returner that's been here for more than a year. So I'm going to bring all the experience of the 2 conference championships that I've won. And I have a chance to win a third, which nobody has ever done in team history. So I just want to be able to build not a legacy for me in that, because I didn't do anything at the start of my career to really say that, but I want to have a proud ending to my career, really a good 4th year to where I was a big impact player for this team. So yeah.
Carson, it was a outstanding year for you and the team, and I know there's always, once you have a year like this, you want to make it even better. I know all of you throughout the summer, and then when you get back in the fall, that's going to continue to be a goal for you guys and Coach Feccio here. Carson, really appreciate the time, man. Thanks for hopping on and spending some time here with me and Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Well, another key contributor for Coach Feccio joins us now. We were able to talk to Carson earlier. Now we move on to Frank, who joins us here remotely. Frank, thank you so much, one, for the time. So many great emotions, I know, this year when you guys think of the year, the excitement level that you were able to bring, and, of course, another Valley Championship and another regional. For you, Frank, what do you hold on to most from just this past year of a really good memory for you?
A really good memory for me that I'll hold on to is just, Eddie coming up 18, and we were all just standing there watching him finish the last hole. And, him hitting that last putt in and all of us feeling very accomplished and knowing that we did it, it felt really good, and it's a memory that I'll hold on to for the rest of my life. And, just seeing all the smiles from the teammates to our families to Coach, it was something very special for us.
Frank, those are moments that you can't really just manufacture other than putting in the hard work. You guys going out and practicing each and every day the competition. Carson mentioned the competition aspect that all of you had from the fall. What did you enjoy most, Frank, of the competition side with you guys day to day? What was competition like you guys day to day within your team?
The competitions were very enjoyable, but they were tough. I mean, Coach definitely, from the beginning of the year, told us it wasn't going to be easy, that it was going to be hard on us. And, I didn't quite understand. Like, I knew it was going to be hard, but I finally understand why he was so hard on us and why the competitions and why the practices and why we were doing what we were doing. I understood it was to prepare us for that moment, to win an MVC, to win another championship for the school. And it brought all of us together as well as a team. It really brought us closer, and we were stronger because of all the competitions we had. And it was just a great time that we got to share, and it was a good job.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you learned what all that hard work and Coach being on you all the time was for that moment right there, right? But no, that was I will say, even being a part of some other championships. That moment that you described right there was just, you know, I think it's like you're dreaming of winning, but then being able to come up 18 and kind of have the lead enough to where Eddie can make that putt, and then to look over and to see everybody lined up there and just the celebration, you know, and I think it's just it's a big kudos to our team. And obviously, you know, Frank was a part of that group that, you know, as we talked about earlier, not everybody gets to travel. So at conference championship time, not everybody was on the team that week. So we had some people that were left at home. But when it came time for the final day and being able to see the position that we were in, to see everybody there, and Frank talked about it, everybody played a role. Whether you made that putt on the last hole, whether you hit the opening tee shot, we were all there to embrace it. And to me, I think that was probably the most special piece, because even at the other championships, you only have just those people there, knowing that there's people at home that still played that part and helping. And obviously, that's a moment that I don't think that I'll ever forget either.
Frank, to kind of build off of what Coach just said, you know, it really takes good chemistry that all of you have from the aspect of, and it's not just being happy for one another, but being genuinely happy for one another. What was it about you guys as a group that made it genuine happiness that you guys would support one another the way you did?
I think it was really all of us. We all kind of have the same kind of personality. I mean, we all joke around, but when it's time to be really serious and lock in and take everything that coach is telling us, and we take everything very seriously when it's practice time, and you know we're practicing it. We're very serious about everything, and we'll like after practice we'll go and hang out and we'll watch TV and we'll all be very close. Like we never really did anything like outside of the golf team. We all did everything together. We played ping pong. We watched movies. We watched our favorite sports teams. We played FIFA. Like, I think that's why we were so close as a team, and I think that's why we have such great relationships off the course as well.
You mentioned playing FIFA. You mentioned all those games. Who's the best gamer on the team? Who's the best gamer on the team?
Oh. We had some really close arguments about this, and I'm gonna have to say Justin Wingirder on that one. Eddie and Justin were neck and neck. There was a lot of bickering going on in the group, but I think Justin kind of settled it with the last game that they had before he left. So.
Well, what's disappointing is I was hoping you were going to say Coach Fetcho.
No, I'm not a big gamer, so I don't play any of that.
Well, go ahead, Coach Fetcho.
So Frank, I mean, obviously, you know, Frank's coming in. He's a freshman, right? He's coming from Florida. He's coming. This is a whole new area, a whole new dynamic for him. And just hearing him talk about, you know, his transition in here, and, you know, he said, Coach said it was going to be hard. You know, I didn't really know what to expect. And I guess for me, you know, Frank, was there a moment, you know, I don't know if it was the first day, the first week, the first qualifier, to where you were like, wow, okay, this is tough. This is going to be different than I expected.
Yeah, there was a moment. I think it was like, I want to say second week into practice, and I feel like we all didn't like perform to what you wanted us to perform at, and you told us like how disappointed you were, and I was like, I've had some people do that to me, but it's been mostly my parents, where it's just like letting me know if I am not performing where I should be performing, and it's hit me. But when you did it, it hit me a little harder, and I was like, okay, this is like something very serious that and it's way different. I mean, I thought college was going to be more do it on your own thing, and here at SIU, like, it was more of a team thing. Like, we all did everything together as a team, and as like it was more like a family. It wasn't like we all practiced by ourselves. I mean, coach was there every day setting up practices, and I just thought it was going to be a little bit different, that we were going to be setting up our own practices. But I'm glad that it went the way it went. Like, I'm glad coach set up the practices, and I'm glad coach made us do the 3, 4, 5 footers. You know, he would try to shake some change, try to cough when we were hitting some putts that were for, like, not to have practice the next day or something like that. That was really cool to me. I mean, that was like the turning point for me when we were all doing that together. It seemed like we really truly cared.
It was an area, Coach Feccio, where I think looking at it from what, you know, Frank just mentioned too, of there has to be a moment in time for you as a leader of when, you know, you can push your team. And when those conversations have to be had, how do you really look at that from your perspective of, and how you lean on guys, whether it's Frank, who's really young, freshman, as you mentioned, coming in, to some of your more veteran players, of determining what message you want to bring, knowing there's guys of different stature on your team in terms of how long they've been around you.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a challenging part of, you know, having a new roster every, you know, with your new guys bringing in your returners. You usually know, you know, quote unquote, how to push the buttons, I guess. You know, you've been around them enough. You know, you know how to try to push them to get to an area to where they're uncomfortable, but their ability can take them there, and they can be able to persevere through being uncomfortable. And so I think when you're new into the program, you're trying to figure all that out. But I think, you know, to Frank's point there, like, even from day one in the first meeting, you know, we try to lay out our expectations of what we expect in our program, right? Like, this is what we expect every day. This is what we're trying to achieve. These are the goals we're going to set for ourselves. And ultimately, the way that we're going to do it is the people in this room, right? And I think, you know, I guess the way that I would sit here and describe the way that he talked about it is that day, that moment, hopefully he was able to feel my passion toward what it was that we were going to try to do, right? If we're going to achieve great things, we can't go through the motions. We can't just have days where we just go through the motions. And, you know, it'd be like some of the things, like I would tell our guys, right? Like, it's not just a Tuesday afternoon practice at Hickory. Like, this is us getting prepared for the next moment. And so I think through those ups and downs, you find ways to be able to understand how to talk to each player, because each guy's a little bit different, right? And so there's some players that you can challenge head on and you can get in their face and they can respond. And there's some that maybe that's not quite it. You might have to be more putting your hand around them and doing stuff. But I will say that I think, and this could be something that Frank can expand, you know, I feel like we try to have everybody at that, whatever way that I try to talk to you, we're still trying, your expectation or standard is still to this level. Like, we're not looking and being like, okay, we're going to have to treat this guy a certain way over here. We're going to have to treat this guy a certain way over here. It's like, we're all here to do a job and we have to do it every day. And we have to compete to be able to bring it every single day.
Can you add to that, Frank, of kind of what Coach Feccio was just talking about?
Yeah, when we started practice, it would be every day. He would always bring this up, and I always thought, like, he never wanted us to forget any day that we were all doing this just for, like, one goal, and it was to get to the NCAA championship. And he would always bring up, we're going to win conference. Like, this putt is to win conference. Treat it like it's to win conference. Treat this practice like it's your last practice. And it really started to hit me every time. Like, I was like, you know what, he's right. Like, we need to treat this like it's our last practice. And we had some individual, like, team meetings just with just the guys, not coach, where we were talking about everyone's goals and what we wanted to achieve. And I think after we did that, we really started to click going into spring, and it was like a whole different team. Like, we all were just in a different mindset. Like, we're going to win this thing, and they're going to have to take it from us. And I remember Coach talking to us about that. They're going to have to rip it out of our hands if they're going to win. And we tried to prepare ourselves every day for that course. I mean, we practice coming into it was tough. I mean, that was probably like some of our hardest practices we had, and we had some really challenging workouts as well. We were pushing each other every day to win this MVC, and then we also, after we won the MVC, we were like, all right, what's next? And we were regionals, and it was a great time, and I just wanted to say that Coach did an amazing job preparing us for that moment, and all of his like pushing us to be our very best, it was all worth it when we held up that trophy and we won it for the team. So
Don't share all our secrets, Frank.
Yeah, don't share them all, Frank. We need to try to keep some of the Saluki pride here, and the championships coming the Saluki way. But to your point, Frank, and we talked about this with Carson when Coach and I one-on-one, we were mentioning this as well. And yes, you guys prepare every day in practice, and you have those pressure situations, but you can only do that so much in a practice. You have to go out and test yourselves every week. You do that in the fall. You do that with the schedule that Coach Fetcho really pushes on you. Despite being a freshman in your freshman year, where did the fact of knowing who you were going up against, that standard, as Coach Fetcho says, it never changes, you're going to reach it, how did that impact you in your freshman year, and what are you going to take the most now carrying forward that you really learned throughout this past year?
I mean, what I really learned this past year from Coach Fetcho and his standard is I learned that I can hit that standard every day, and that it's okay if you have a mishap or whatever, but I learned that I don't need to try too hard. I need to let it just come to me. And it started to show a little bit towards the end of the spring wherein I was playing, but I think I was more playing like that towards the end of the fall, where it was like Coach's standards here and I got to meet it. And I was doing it, and I just felt like I was such in a great zone, and I felt amazing, and and doing all the decade stuff and having my target picked out. I mean, Coach prepared us to be successful on the course by doing the decade stuff and having a good target and not weak-siding ourselves. I think that's how we met his goal, is just by playing smart and not pushing, not pressing. Just let the course come to you. And yeah, I mean, that's just how I basically am going to meet his goals, and that's how I've been meeting his goals.
Coach Fetcho, you kind of hear Frank there. What really stood out to you about his freshman year, and to really come into a team that has a lot of talent throughout, but yet was still able to rise to an occasion where you knew he could reach that standard even as a freshman?
Right. I mean, when you're a new person, no matter what program you're going into, right, there's a learning curve that you're trying to figure things out. And I think, hearing, Frank talk about some of those things, I mean, there's a lot of things that he wasn't doing in his own game that he picked up here, right, that he was able to try to learn and develop and help his own game. And so it's good to be able to hear that. But even when you're doing that, you're learning this. He's moving from a different place. He's learning to live on his own. There's a lot of challenges, so you're trying to figure all that out. And so with all of those things, and then to be able to have somebody in their freshman year to be able to go out, compete, qualify for tournaments, play, one thing that, we didn't really overly publicize, but we tried to get our guys extra events throughout the course of the fall because we have a big roster. So we tried to put them out and do different stuff. So, Frank was able to go and play in Rin Lake's tournament up the road. He won that event, right? So then you're seeing that he can perform in that pressure. The very next week, we were able to send guys down to Murray State's event. I think he goes and I think he finishes in the top 10 down there, right? So again, a back-to-back weeks, he's able to he's learning, he's growing, he's able to kind of get himself in there and play well in tournaments. Then ultimately, as he talked about at the end of the fall, then he goes and he travels and gets to go to Hawaii and play out there, right? And I know that, if we talk to him, he's going to say, it wasn't his best week. He didn't perform the way that he wanted to. But for me, that's how you learn. That's how you grow, right? I mean, that's kind of some of the things we're talking about is he has to be able to get into those environments to where he's uncomfortable, to where he's putting himself out there in a field where there's top 25 teams, there's these players, and you have to be able to feel what it's like internally for me to be able to prepare and get motivated and just handle those emotions that come with it, and then to be able to perform. And just because things didn't go his way that particular week doesn't mean that he can't perform. It just means that we have to learn how to get into that environment and be able to keep performing. And I think a lot of what he's talking about, or at least what I would say as a coach, what we're trying to do is we have very talented players. Frank's a very talented player. When he's playing well, we don't have to worry about him. He's going to go play well. He's going to make birdies. He's going to shoot under par. He's going to do his thing. What we're trying to get to is being able to be like, when it's not your best day or things just don't feel right or whatever, like we're kind of elevating we're elevating the floor of your game to make it higher, right? Like we're trying to make, quote unquote, your bad golf better so that you stay in it every single week, every single tournament, every single round. And maybe on your weeks where it's not going your way, maybe you don't win, but you're a guy that everybody's like, this guy won't go away. He's right here every time. And so I think that we'll see that through Frank, through being able to do that. Again, there's a lot to throw at people their freshman year, and I think that he handled it very well. And we are definitely going to be looking for those experiences that he learned that freshman year to roll into his sophomore year and play a role on this team.
Frank, we'll let you out here on this note. As Coach kind of mentioned, knowing that, look, a lot can be on your plate moving forward now. You got your freshman year underneath your belt. You were able to play in some key tournaments to help you out. What do you want to build on, Frank? What are going to be the biggest things this summer that you try to continue to improve on and make even next year a better year for you?
To have a better year next year, I think I'm just going to keep working on strong side in the ball. Just trying to keep hitting greens and reg and just being okay with par and not trying to push to make birdies or anything. Let the course kind of come to me. Just kind of dial in some of my numbers, work on some of my softer iron shots, trying to hit some more knockdowns. That's basically it. I mean, coach has kind of simplified the course a lot for me and how to play. And I have some tournaments coming up this summer, so I'm hoping to play well in those and maybe win one or two. And I think I'm going to be doing that by just strong side and just hitting, playing, keeping the ball in play, and just letting the course come to me.
Frank, we appreciate the time. Glad we were able to get you. It looks like is that some Florida sunshine there behind you? Man, the Florida sunshine looks good.
Yeah, maybe just real quick before you go.
Yes.
Maybe, obviously I know, right, because I do it, but, maybe you could share with the listeners, how does a guy from Central Florida make his way to Southern Illinois, right? What made Southern Illinois stand out to you? What made you want to be here? And then, kind of after going through your first year here, just, the things that you've kind of come to love and appreciate about Southern Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, what made me pick Southern Illinois was some of the guys that Coach was grabbing. I talked to before I visited there. I talked to Carson and I talked to Justin Wingirter, and they really sold me on the place. They were great great guys I met there, and they were just so helpful. I mean, everybody looked happy there when I visited. It was just seemed like such a like a beautiful place and a great small little town that I loved. We're okay with just playing good golf. I wanted to go to a place that would teach me to be a winner, and I'm really happy, and I'm glad I picked Southern Illinois.
Well, Frank, we're glad you picked Southern Illinois too, and we know next year we'll be here in a blink of an eye. Frank, thanks so much for the time joining Coach and I here today.
Thank you.